Now we want to tackle our first project task. We need to import a set of data into our newly configured MongoDB instance. We'll do this using the MongoDB import utility from the command line. After importing this data, we'll then use the Mongo shell and some of its common commands to examine the data contents. Our first step is to open a new terminal and change to the events directory. And the command for the Mongo import tool is Mongo import. And we will need to add some arguments. First of all, we need to tell the Mongo import tool which database we're using. As we have no database defined in our project yet, when we tell the Mongo import tool which database to use, if it does not exist, it will simply create it. The argument is --db for database, and we want to call this event app. And the next argument that we need to add is which collection within the database we want this data to be a part of. Think of collections in a relational sense as tables. The collection we want to use is called events. Okay, and we can use the drop command. If this collection did exist, we will drop it first before we import the data. In our case, it's not necessary, but to see what that looks like, we'll put it in. And because the format of our data is a JSON array, we need to tell the Mongo import tool that that's what we'll be importing. And then we need to tell the import tool which file contains our data. And there we have it. So we can hit the enter key and we can see on the screen that it first dropped event app.events. Even though it didn't exist, it tried to drop it and then imported 4 objects. That seems appropriate. We did have 4 objects in our JSON array in our data test.json file, and it looks like the import is good. And that is how we can use the Mongo import tool. We use the Mongo import command. We tell it which database we're working with, which particular collection we want to put our imported data into. We can tell it to drop the collection if it exists already, and we need to tell it that our data is a JSON array format. If it's not in a JSON array format and it's just loose JSON data outside of an array, we don't need to use that argument. And then we need to tell the Mongo import tool which file to use in the import process. We can use the Mongo import tool to import any JSON data that we have. It's very simple and quite powerful actually. All we need to do is tell it which database and which collection to use.